Good morning and happy Monday, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this very drizzly grey Monday afternoon. We're here to talk about startups and crowdfunding. So hopefully you're in the right place if you are joining us this afternoon. Just a quick note as well that we are going to be covering quite a few topics. We're going to try and stick to around about half an hour, but depending on how many questions we get from you guys, it may go on a little bit longer. So do please hang on. If anyone's having any technical difficulties, sound dropping out and that kind of thing, best thing to do is just refresh your page and that should normally sort it out. And also a note that we will be sending around a copy of this so you can replay it later after the session. So don't worry if you miss anything and you want to watch it back, we'll sort that out for you. So today we're going to be covering what is crowdfunding, talking about that, the benefits of crowdfunding as a startup business. I've actually crowdfunded for starting up 2 businesses now, and I can definitely acknowledge that there are some benefits to doing that. We're going to be talking about what makes a good crowdfunding project, the 3 steps that you need to take to be successful, getting value out of rewards, and also talking about some more general tips for starting a business, things like, bank accounts, accounting, software, marketing, various bits and bobs. And then we'll talk about some additional advice and support that you can get, and maybe some extra funding that you can access too. And we're also going to be sharing at the end a link to our Learn platform. That's an online platform where you can basically go through, take quizzes, watch videos, download little worksheets, all bits and bobs that you need to get yourself set up and crowdfunding very much on the right foot. So quick housekeeping points. I don't know if any of you have been to these webinars before. Hopefully they're pretty easy to navigate. Obviously you've got the chat down the side there where you can pop in any questions that you have for any of us. And also you can send private messages to our admins on there if you're having any difficulties. Just to let you know as well, we can't see you, in case you're wondering. You can see us, but you are very much in the privacy of your own home, so don't worry. But as I say, it is interactive, so you can get in touch with us via the chat down there. Are we ready to get started? I think so. I think we're all ready. So I'm going to introduce Bertie, who's going to come and join us to kick things off. Hey, Bert.
Hi, Sally.
So Bertie's our senior crowdfunding coach at Crowdfunder. He's been around the block a few times. He knows all about crowdfunding for startup businesses. So he's going to introduce us and get us going for this session today then, Bert. So I'll let you take it away.
Great. Thank you very much. So just taking control of the whole screen, I thought that would be best. I hope you're all well. So I think today's session, as Sammy talked about, we're going to be delving into the depths that is crowdfunding and demystifying that concept and making it into a very much a reality for you. As we know, the last few months have been so topsy-turvy, to say the least. It's been an incredibly different landscape across the commercial sector and in every kind of industry we can imagine. But there are some good news stories coming through, and hopefully you've been following a bit about crowdfunders' progress and their contribution to some of the solutions to the pandemic. And what we're preparing for now, as lots of businesses aren't able to function in their normal capacity, we're naturally going to see lots of people looking for work, unemployed. But on the flip side of that, we found out that across lockdown, 50% more businesses were being started up than compared with the year previously. So there's an incredible amount of talent in the UK, and this, with the right type of support, we think that people can start looking to themselves inwardly around their own passions, own interests, and forming some of the new businesses that are going to contribute to the bounce back of the UK economy. So hopefully amongst you there's a few kind of entrepreneurs who maybe through the coronavirus have a bit more time on their hands and therefore the opportunity to do it. But I think we're going to be with you for every step of this journey, because one of the ways in that we want to assist you is that we're going to take off all fees. We're going to cover every single fee for projects that want to start a business because they've been affected by the coronavirus or in response to the coronavirus. So that means that whatever you raise, if you fit into this category, that's going to be 100% into your bank account. So you don't need to worry about any of that. And then we've built all of these resources, which we're going to discuss to tell you a bit about it. So the campaign really is crowdfund, #crowdfunder startups. And we're really just focusing on the fact that maybe traditionally, people never thought they had enough time. They had too many kind of balls in the air juggling, that they couldn't entertain the idea of progressing some of their own ideas. Or like me, just find that you've got so little headspace at the end of the day that you don't simply have the energy. So some of that is changing, and people are going to be kind of thinking on their feet and maybe kind of brushing off the dust of some of those ideas that they had before, or passions, and really kind of making that into a reality. And crowdfunding is absolutely the way to do that, because we're going to show you exactly how to tell your story, how to identify an audience, and how to reach them. So that's part of the kind of invaluable teaching that we learn here at Crowdfunder. So for those of you who don't know, we are the #1 rewards-based crowdfunding company in the UK, something that we're very proud of, and something that I do say all the time. So forgive me if you've heard that before, but it's worth a mention. But we've been in operation for about 5 or 6 years. So traditionally, crowdfunding was very much an alternative form of finance. Yet today, you're probably seeing it now more than ever. Maybe it's in politics, in the environment, certainly with businesses or COVID support. Just over the lockdown period, there have been millions and millions of pounds raised in response to the pandemic to assist people through this crisis. But while maybe 5 or 6 years ago, it was a bit of a knowledge gap, maybe in how it worked, and people were looking at the more traditional methods of bank loans, etc. But today we have about 200 projects added every single day. So there's a huge shift in the public comfortability, knowledge, and experience of crowdfunding. And to date, the projects that have used us have raised over £110 million, and that is growing considerably each day. So Crowdfunder, before you ask, is absolutely available to everyone and anyone. It's a very broad platform, so it hosts all of those campaigns we talked about. But the main focus today is business. So don't hesitate to ask whether you might be the right type of project. Feel free to ask that question. But all you need to do is view the Crowdfunder page.co.uk, and the Explore section. You can filter by category and just see exactly how much of a breadth there is in the crowdfunding landscape. So how it works, this is, I think, as a coach, one of the most important parts to focus on. It's my job and many of us here at Crowdfunder to help people run successful crowdfunding campaigns. Maybe a little less now than it was before, but the general, I think, opinion of crowdfunding was that it was some kind of magical golden concept whereby you had an idea, you put it on the internet, and there are just people out there with wads of cash ready to fund you. Great idea. That's not how it works. The reality is that it takes a lot of hard work, but like anything, all of that hard work put into it reflects how successful your campaign is going to be and will make you feel fantastic at the end of it. So you'll be insecure in the knowledge that you've worked hard to cross all of the T's and dot all the I's. So how it works, visit crowdfunder.co.uk. In particular, there's a section on the website which is about the Crowdfunder Startups campaign we're doing. So for those of you who are starting up a business in response to the effects of coronavirus, so you would create a draft page. This can stay in a draft phase for as long as you like. As we mentioned before, it's free to create a page and to run a campaign for this particular crowdfund startups idea that we've got. So my advice, first action point after this webinar, start a page, filling out the information of where you're based, who you are, what you're trying to do, and create a page that's essentially going to be your shop window to give people a very clear idea about what's involved. And you're going to set a target in which to reach, and a timeline in which to reach it. So traditional campaigns always run for 4 weeks. And that might sound very short to some of you, but it's absolutely probably the bedrock reason of why crowdfunding is effective, because it's a short and sharp exercise. No one has the time to run a whole year campaign, and maintaining your own interest in something like that, let alone your audiences, is very, very difficult. So we find that 4 weeks is the absolute optimum time in which to create a succinct plan and deliver it out to get to the funds you need. So once you've set a timeline and a target, you'll choose a particular live date, and I'd really get you thinking about the particulars of what that date will be, because we generally advise working towards something. You're going to add a range of rewards. So these are what people can pledge on. This is how you attract the money or the financial contributions to your page. And once you've prepared, which we're going to talk to you about now, you're going to launch your project, and you're going to get a link to your page, and it will be that which you share to all of the people, organizations, businesses, communities that you believe will share an interest in what you're doing, and they in turn will be able to pledge on your page to help you get to your target. So rewards-based crowdfunding is our, I suppose, USP as a business. So you can, of course, receive donations. So similar to other platforms like Just Giving, people are able to contribute 10, 20, £100 towards a campaign, because they simply like the idea of what you're doing. So while facilitating that, we enable you to offer rewards, which means a benefit of some kind in return for a financial contribution, which is absolutely essential to any business campaign, because you're pre-selling your products and marketing them to get people interested. The reason why we do it is because the average amount donated onto a crowdfunding campaign is £20, whereas if you offer a range of rewards at different price points, the average of that is boosted up to £50. So essentially, it's a mechanism which you can use to raise more money for your project. So when you get started on the crowdfunder.co.uk website, you're going to pick from 2 different funding methods, one of which is called all or nothing, which means you set a target and you absolutely must hit it, otherwise the money is refunded to your audience. And the other being flexible funding. So you set a target, but you don't have to hit it. You keep everything you raise. And I can almost hear the shock and the horror from many of you who are thinking, why on earth anyone would choose to go for an all or nothing style campaign. But believe it or not, that is our recommended funding method. And there are many different reasons why. Purely because with crowdfunding, you've got to start with the minimum you need and put in a really good plan to overfund. And from a coaching perspective or a coach's perspective, we want everyone to be as realistic as possible about what they believe they can raise. And if the project is a very small one, then the target would be reflected in that. And it's important to have the right target to begin with, because if you choose too great a target, the psychology of those who visit your page, they'll be put off because it won't look feasible, and therefore they won't want to contribute. So the all or nothing target helps you set what is the minimum you need, something that you feel quite confident in getting, and you get there and you springboard off that success to raise more money. And you continue to stretch your target, and once you hit that initial target, everything you raise on top of that, you keep. But you might use it for a capital project. Let's say you're doing a bakery on the high street and you need £10,000, and the rewards that you've offered are kind of coffee and a piece of cake. You've got bread to be delivered to a household for once a week, or baking workshops, etc. So if you don't raise 10 grand, then you won't be able to deliver the rewards. Therefore, you choose the all or nothing method. But of course, there's also urgency. People tend to be better able to support your campaign or pledge more if you're able to continue to draw their attention to the remainder that's left to raise, and the fact that the money will be refunded back to the supporters should it be unsuccessful. So do you have a long, hard think about that? So benefits to a project, and I'm a huge I really believe in this whole slide, actually, because crowdfunding is, yes, it's a financial exercise. It's about getting the money for your project. However, there's so much more, as Samuel would have found, as I've found, and many others who you might be hearing a bit from later today. That's just a kind of a secret that we've got a little surprise at the end. But if you think about from a business perspective, if you're in that lockdown position of maybe you've been furloughed, it's coming towards the end of that in October, or maybe you've been made redundant, and you're thinking about what kind of interest is there going to be in my business idea, then crowdfunding is a very, very good way to test the water, because it's driven around supporter numbers, and these supporters are pledging money onto your page to help you get to your target. So if you're running a crowdfunding campaign and you can't get any supporters, then that would be a fair indication to suggest that you're probably barking up the wrong tree, and that you need to kind of reframe what it is you're doing. But on the flip side, if you can get hundreds of people to back your project, as we see all the time across crowdfunding, whether it's 100 people up to 1,000 people, that would suggest there's a real demand and appreciation for the service that you're going to provide. So those people who support your bakery that you're starting up, they'll go on to be future customers. And the wonderful thing is about crowdfunding is that there's no need to spend anything or employ anyone in terms of a great marketing budget, because what we'll teach you to do is to raise awareness. So the second point is we'll teach you how to identify every individual or group of your network who you believe is relevant to your campaign and who you want to support you, and we'll show you how to reach them and how to break that audience down. So naturally, the byproduct of running a crowdfunding campaign is that from day 1 to day 28, you are shouting about this campaign the loudest and the proudest you've done about anything. And the consequence of that is that you're going to start so many more conversations. You'll build lots and lots of new bridges into possible new relationships, partnerships that will exist well beyond your crowdfunding campaign. So it's an opportunity to test all of the language in which you use to identify or connect with your audience, and to raise the profile of what you're doing. So that, I think, is essentially you're getting paid to market your project, because people are backing you, and at the same time you're naturally really getting the brand out there. And advocacy, this next point, is very true, because it's not like signing a campaign sheet. It's people who are pledging their kind of own hard-earned cash onto your project. And people don't do that for the sake of it. People do it because they either want the reward or they think you're doing something so worthwhile that they're happy to contribute to your success. And therefore that there's a huge source of pride in that decision. And we find that the people who back crowdfunding campaigns can form your supporter list. They might be customers, volunteers, partners in the future. And what Crowdfunder will do is that when your campaign ends, you'll be able to download all your supporter details, which will be tell you very specifically in GDPR terms who you can contact in the future, who can be part of your new marketing database. But the learning new skills thing, I think it will be a revelation for anyone who has crowdfunded, because it is a very short and sharp course into telling a story, understanding which promotional channels to use, what your kind of language your audience responds to, what rewards, products that they like or they're interested in, and so much more, whether that's building a social media channel or just networking in itself. There's a huge amount to learn here, and we've been putting together advice for this across the last 5 years, and we do it very well. So I think there is always some urgency in crowdfunding. I know that when you're wanting to put a campaign together, but normally we suggest a few weeks to a month really of preparation to make sure you've got everything you need, and therefore you're going to learn a lot about planning the whole campaign, creating the page, and running it once you're live. And one of our specialties is the extra funding. So part of Crowdfunder UK's business model is to work with different businesses, corporates and councils all across the UK who've got certain pots of funding, either something that's CSR, corporate social responsibility funding, government funding, or council money to support certain types of projects. And that's all available through our website, and there's millions of pounds of it. So the process of that is to start a crowdfunding campaign, and it's automated. So once you fill in the information about where and who you are, it will start matching you with the funds it thinks you should apply to. And you can apply to these before you even start your campaign, and then the money is pledged directly onto your project. So it's a very, very interesting way that we're trying to innovate the way in which grant money is distributed, thereby making it much more liquid and easier to access. So crowdfunding in the flesh. This is Jess Davies. I thought it would be useful for you to have a look at an example. I think Sammy knows Jess herself, actually.
I do. Yeah, I do know Jess. And she's a classic example of someone who went on furlough and finally had the time to do this idea that she'd had for ages. I think the best way to really get what she's about is to have a look at her project page. So I think we're going to put the link in, aren't we?
Yeah. Do you want me to share the page and just so everyone can have a quick look at it? Yeah.
I know we're running over on time, everyone, so I'm really sorry. If you can hang on with us.
Well, plenty. We are kind of about halfway, so we're nearly there. But so this campaign in particular, £10,000 from 109 supporters who are now customers, and it's turning pre-loved items, which are word denim, and using vibrant African fabric to create something new and exciting, and that's part of the sustainable and circular clothing economy. But yeah, we'll share the link. Do have a look and jump on that. Unless there was anything you wanted to say.
No, I don't think so. I think it's really just, I guess, shining a light on someone who this is very much what you traditionally call a kitchen table business. So the picture on Jess's page, that's in her living room. It's just her and her dog, chipping away, deciding, to run this business. So we're not talking about, people who have all these, huge commercial, loads of experience, have this big business set up and that kind of thing. Entrepreneurs and startups do often begin as just people like us. So don't be intimidated by that phrase.
Yeah, and I think part of the Crowdfunder Startups campaign we're doing, if you go to our website, you'll be directed to that particular page, and we're building a community of videos where people like Jess are sharing their experiences of how they came to crowdfund and what it was like. So as Sammy says, these are very much kind of the people like us who are starting a business with no prior experience. So there's a lot to be said, I think, in that kind of learning. So task wise, this is what you'll be focusing on. You're going to be the project leader, and there's 3 pieces of work. So you're going to create a page, complete a network map, which is your audience, and make a marketing plan. So what's going to happen across the 4 weeks in which you're live. So the network map, this is the age-old exercise that we haven't even changed across the last 5 years. But essentially, it's a creative exercise to get you with a big sheet of paper and any teammates to really create an exhaustive list of who you know and who you'd like to know. So you always start with those most familiar with you. Those are easiest to access, and you work your way out from there. But really, this should live in a spreadsheet, so something that you can share with your rest of your team, because it's always recommended to get a couple of people to assist. And that way, you've got a very, very good database of who you believe is interested in the campaign, what contact method you're going to use to reach them, and what the status of that contact is. So have you spoken to them? Have they pledged? Have you had to chase them? And just so you've got a very, very good record of that. But it's very simple stuff, just normal spreadsheets. That's how I'd recommend you do it. The making a page, really, really straightforward as well. The whole kind of website is built to support you and to really enable you to learn along the journey as you go. So at each section, there's a video with Sammy there explaining how to do it. But essentially, it's just where you are based, who you are. You're going to need UK ID UK bank account to crowdfund with us. You set a target, offer rewards, and dress a project page. So I'm going to quickly show you an example page of this. Is Ollie and Naomi, who actually are in the process of crowdfunding at the moment. Let's have a look to see how they are doing. It's called The Public Spirit, and Ollie himself was made redundant back in September, and he always had kind of a love of making cocktails and had interest in the drinks industry. And at this stage, they've hit their target. They've still got 15 days left to go, 110 supporters, nearly £10,500 raised. And from you can see, they've just got clear titles on their page. And this page is, as we said earlier, their shop window. You've got images, which kind of show some of their branding. You've got product examples and the actual manufacture and travel and journey process. So there's a lot of information here, and good information, even the types of rewards you can expect, from tote bags to beakers, and they themselves as the humans behind it. The rewards live on the right hand side of the page. They're covering a variety of different price points, so that they're very inclusive of everyone. And they've got a crowdfunding video, which isn't essential to run, but we absolutely suggest it because it's an additional creative medium for people to engage with. And it's also, I think, a good kind of bit of work for everyone to embark on. And again, from a coach's perspective, it just shows that you're really working hard actually on the campaign itself. So do you have a look at that? He and Naomi are one of the people we've interviewed, so they're going to live on the Crowdfunder Startups homepage, as it were. But just to reiterate that crowdfunding is very much like any other financial experience or buying experience online. So a paragraph of just text isn't going to cut it. If you don't put the information on there to paint a very clear picture as to what people are buying into, then they simply won't back it, because you wouldn't buy something without knowing what it looks like or a bit about the background. So for extra funding, all you need to do is start filling in the information about yourself and your campaign, and you're going to be matched with the extra funding that is available to you. They might not all be relevant, but you can check the criteria. And if you believe that you can apply, then apply through the website. Do that before you go live, so it's in our system. And then we've got fund distribution managers who will work on that. And should the application be successful, they usually pledge the money directly onto your page at about 25%. So you raise the first little bit to show that you're in the game and you're working hard. The money goes onto the page, and that really gives you a big boost. So the final section really to look at is running your campaign. So what do you do once you're live? And this is the antidote to the put it up on the website and see what happens approach. So again, maybe another tab in your spreadsheet, 1 to 28 days, what's going to happen each day in terms of promotion? Because remember, if no one's landing, well, if you're not promoting your page, no one's landing on your page, and therefore no one's pledging. So effectively, it will immediately come to a halt. And you've got to maintain your momentum, therefore, by ensuring that each day you've got pre-booked activity from Facebook, Insta posts, to community groups, to other promotional networks, all kind of sending your link out there to their audience. But one of the great trade secrets is that we never send our projects out on 0%. Because that has the effect of discouraging people from getting involved, because it doesn't look credible and therefore they won't back it. So we always start from the center of our networks and we work our way out from there. So those people that we're most familiar with, we've got the easiest and most straightforward approach of contact. So WhatsApp and telephone, or really for that case, you get your team together. If you've got 5 people, it's not a stretch of the imagination that each of you knows 20 people, friends and family. So if every person can contribute 20, you've got your first 100, which we know if you're a rewards-based campaign and the average pledge is £50, then you've got £5,000. And therefore, that's the financial proof, which allows you to move into the next rungs of your audience, who people will be encouraged to see what you're doing and therefore feel more excited and confident in making a pledge. So the press release doesn't come first. It really comes about kind of 75% of the way through, and you kind of shift through all of these gears, which will mean that you don't play all your best tricks at once. And the best thing is just to pre-book as much of that activity in. So I think before the great surprise, Sammy's going to tell us a little bit about what support's available.
Thanks, Bert. Right, I best do that then. So there is a ton of support, and I think the really key thing to highlight is that it's totally up to you what you want to access. So if you're the kind of person that just likes to crack on, download a guide, work through it and just, do that in your own time, then that's absolutely fine. If you'd rather, join in with a session like this, if you'd like to access some one-to-one, if you just like someone to have a look at your page and let you know if there's any feedback, you can get in touch with us and do that. Similarly, if you're the kind of person who likes to go online and work your way through a course, do some quizzes and sort of do it in a bit more of an interactive way, then that's on offer for you as well. So you're not on your own throughout. We'll make sure we'll be in touch with you regularly through email with that personalized advice, but it's your project. So it's on you to make the most of the advice that is there. The best feedback that we get is, when we say what's the advice you'd give to anyone who's going to crowdfund, and they say, just do what Crowdfunder tell you to. Follow the advice, because guess what? Thousands of people have done this before. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So it's up to you. Take control of your own destiny. Follow the advice, however you'd like to access it, and we'll put lots of links as well as we go through. So we're going to say goodbye to Bertie just for a moment, if we can survive without him. And we're going to introduce a guest who is Janie, who recently ran a crowdfunder project for her own business startup. So hopefully we're going to see, there she is, wonderful. Fab. So hi, Janie. So just to let you guys know, me and Janie actually know each other as well. And I had no idea that she was going to be on this session until she arrived earlier. So this is quite a nice, quite a nice moment. I think you're on mute. If you just want to unmute yourself there we go.
Hello.
Fab. We'll get cracking. So first of all, so for everyone who's not me, would you give everyone a bit of an outline of, what is your business? What is it? What's it all about?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So my name's Jane. My business is that I'm a sound therapist. So I hold gong baths and shamanic adventures. These can be really meditative. It can be really about kind of getting into your inner landscape and exploring yourself in meditation. And alongside that, I run products as well to enhance this experience. So I do things like make candles and oils and send out ritual gift boxes to help you get into a meditative state at home, which has been really helpful during lockdown. So for me, Crowdfunder was something I felt really drawn to really quite quickly, and I know we'll cover this in the session. But I really needed somewhere to practice, because once lockdown hit in the spring, all of my regular spaces, all of my studios, my venues, where I held my one-to-ones, my group events, all of that stuff closed down, and I suddenly had nowhere to practice except for this room, my little spare room, which is only about the size that you can see in this picture. It's like enough to squeeze a cat the other side of the camera. So I suddenly found that I had the will and the desire to carry on working, but I didn't have the space. So my project was all about creating a space, and what I chose to do was buy a teepee, a traditional native teepee, and put it up on some land in North Cornwall so that people could come to me in a safe kind of semi-outdoor space in compliance with COVID regulations, and I could keep on working. And that will happen very quickly at the beginning of the summer.
And do you remember how many supporters you had and how much you raised, or is that all a long memory?
Well, I know I raised just over £5,500 in 3 weeks. And I think it was 87 supporters in total. So I slightly, I wouldn't say ignored the rules, but I definitely, I read the bit where it said, don't do less than 4 weeks, and was like, okay, I'm going to do less than 4 weeks, because that was all the time I had. I know Bertie was talking a lot about the urgency and about how people choose their different ways of fundraising. For me, as I said, I was really kind of on the ropes with my business, because suddenly I had nowhere to work. And when the opportunity for this lands and a really amazing collaboration with an incredible venue came up, I felt that I just had to make it happen like really quickly. So crowdfunding was a great solution for that, but it meant I had to go really, really fast and really use all the resources available and just learn very quickly to make it happen.
I remember we had that conversation before we launched, and that's the thing with guidelines, is they are guidelines when it comes to crowdfunding. The first business I crowdfunded for, my first startup in 2017, I did that in 3 weeks as well. I just needed to get it going quicker. So it's one of those things where 4 weeks is obviously ideal for the majority, but if you need it quicker, do it quicker. We can definitely do that. So I know you mentioned briefly about, crowdfunding was very much a natural fit for you. Mm-hmm. So can you talk us through, I guess, how you landed at the idea of, so I'm gonna crowdfund. This is definitely the thing for me. Like, what took you to that decision?
Well, I had, I guess the initial thing that a lot of us had during lockdown was just cash flow, and I did need to make it happen quickly, and everything, not just finances, but everything, the world has slowed down so much. I was looking at things that I could really own and that I could have control over the result, that I could really affect that change by my own actions. I knew I had the beginnings of a really great community. I live here in North Cornwall as well, and I have a great community locally, but I was beginning to find, even in those first few months back in kind of March, April, that I was extending my reach way beyond the local area. The impact of going online meant that suddenly I had people tuning into my sessions from like Manchester, from Scotland, from Mexico. And I felt like there was a community there to be tapped into if I just had the right platform to do so. And I think I saw someone ask about that kind of getting beyond your local community. And I felt that for me, I was reaching the point with my business where it was definitely time to go bigger. And Crowdfunder felt like a really, really great way of reaching out to that community in a more tangible way. So that was the first thing that really, really got me out there. And definitely the quick turnaround, and definitely the fact that I've also run a few businesses over the years, and one of the best bits of advice I ever had was just start. You could really sit and gestate. It's obviously important to plan, but you can almost sit on it too long. And when this land came up, my initial thought was like, oh, I haven't got time, I can't do it quickly enough. And then I just actually know I can. I just need a tool that I squeeze and manage and make it be as productive and as positive as possible. So to me, Crowdfunder felt like something that every day I could get up and do something to keep those figures going up and keep the revenue coming in to really move the business forward. So rather than sitting waiting for a bank to get back to me, which feels really kind of ineffectual and powerless, this just felt like a way to really be in my own power with it.
Yeah, and I totally get that. I can relate to that as well. I've just finished crowdfunding for my second business as well, really recently, and I guess it's really tough time for planning at the moment. It feels like when there's anything that you've got to rely on a venue, or you've got to rely on something else, to bring all the pieces together for you to be able to function as a business. There's a part of you that's like, do you know what? I'm just gonna take control of my own destiny, and I'm just going to do this my way, and get it going. So tell us a little bit about your rewards then, because you offered a few different bits and bobs, and I think you had some things that were more physical, some things that were online, a real mixed bag. So how did you pull that together?
Yeah, so all of the rewards I offered, they ranged from £5 up to £500. I really did a lot of, the one thing I really, really took a lot of advice on was how to get the rewards right, to really reach as many different people as possible. I knew that I was speaking to some people that know me and know my business, and they wanted to connect, they wanted to buy something, and some people I was just hitting up to get them involved. So I really tried to make sure there was something for everybody. I was already streaming online and streaming my sound sessions online. So that was a really easy thing that I was doing anyway. That didn't cost me any money. And some of the best advice that someone, I think it was you, Sammy, gave me was to make sure that plenty of your rewards aren't taking from your own time and resources, because it's really easy to offer amazing stuff that people are going to love. But if it's going to cost you, as much as it is to actually deliver that, then you haven't actually put the money into a campaign. You've just given yourself a sale, which is great, but actually you haven't made any money for the campaign from it. So I really tried to look at what I was already creating, what was out there in the world that I could do without costing myself time and money. And then I looked at stuff that was really high value, that was going to really attract those big hitters, that would get people really invested at a higher level. And again, as I think I saw in the questions, I really kind of consciously discounted as much as I could within the realms of keeping to margin, so that people could broadly buy something through the campaign rather than buy it on my website. And I really ran a lot of promotion and marketing around that across my pop-ups on my website, on my social media, in my newsletters. I basically made it really unappealing for anyone to buy anything on my website during the campaign, and made sure that if they're about to press anything in the checkout, that it sent them to Crowdfunder and they had the opportunity to buy it there instead. And it was really, just to make sure that if someone had somehow managed to miss my Crowdfunder campaign, I don't know how anyone in my world would have done, because I talked about it so much. But if anyone had, that before they actually committed to a spend with me, they could see that they could do it through Crowdfunder. And I made sure they understood why that helped the community as why that helped me. And that was a really powerful message. So yeah, rewards were really successful. And I should say, actually, one of the things that helped me the most was I had a few people get in touch with me saying, we want to contribute, but either there isn't a reward that's quite right, or actually I want to contribute more than a reward is available for. So I basically bespoke rewards for those people, and kind of something for them to make sure that they felt that they could contribute in the way they wanted and get the value back that they were looking for. And it's really I would say it's really worth the time doing that, because the 3 or 4 occasions I did that for bigger contributions, they all went and they were really great word of mouth ambassadors for me, and they all brought more people in. So that was really supportive.
I think that's really good advice as well, is not just considering your rewards to be this fixed, immovable list. Obviously we spend the time making sure we think we've got the right ones when we go live, but you can add new ones once you're live. You can change them. If someone says, oh, I'd actually really be interested in this, but slightly different, go ahead and add them. And actually it's a really good, it's quite a smart marketing tactic as well, to add a reward, something new and exciting that we can talk about to kind of keep the interest going, once you've been up and running for a little while. So, and I think it's really true, and I've seen some questions about that in terms of how you price rewards so that you're getting value as well as the customer. And there is always that, if you can think of things that are really good value, really worthwhile to the person, making that pledge, but doesn't cost you tons of time and money. So specifically, a lot of the time, it's actually your knowledge. It's something that you're an expert in whatever your business is about. Those kind of things are really valuable to other people, but it's just something that you already know. So if you can find a way to impart some of that knowledge or share some of your expertise, that's very valuable, without necessarily you having to spend loads of money on buying product to pass on. So I'm going to ask you the on the flip side then. So we've talked about all the lovely stuff, crowdfunding. What did you find the most difficult? What do you hate about crowdfunding?
Oh, I don't think I hate. There was days when I was like, why have I started this? Like any project, but I think the two big things at the beginning, it was confidence. I think, again, like a lot of people, psychologically, we've all really been through the mill this year. And I think, going from having a really successful, busy business to suddenly not being able to trade, not being able to earn any money, and just really on the ropes with everything, from rent to council tax, I didn't really have a lot of confidence. And I was also really scared of failing. I was scared that I was going to put this out there in the world and that no one was going to support it. And I was so afraid of that. I was really I'd actually been thinking about crowdfunding for about a year before this. And as Sammy said, I know some of the guys at Crowdfunder. I know lots of people that have crowdfunded, and I know it's a great platform, but I kept not committing because I was basically scared of looking stupid. And when it got to this point in spring, I kind of felt that I just felt like I had to do it. And I just pushed the button and had to get through that confidence block. So at the beginning, that was definitely the most difficult thing, really just not being afraid to put yourself out there and to really believe in what you do. And that, I know this is a question later, but that was one of the things for me that was the biggest and best thing out of the campaign, is the confidence boost it's given me in my business. And I know one of Bertie's slides alluded to this, that it validated what I do. Suddenly I realized that my community, my customer base was huge. It was even, it was way bigger than I'd realized, and there was way more scope to expand that. So, that confidence side was really important. And by putting a bit of a leap of faith out there, it really paid off. The thing probably overall that's the most difficult, I would say, is the time. Like it's a real time drain. I know Sammy's nodding. It can really take your time up, and you really want to be committing to giving everything you can, especially, as we said, 3 or 4 weeks isn't very long. It really isn't. And I found the first week I was still trying to do too much other stuff. And actually, I basically realized I needed to throw my whole heart and soul and energy into this. So I kind of cleared my diary as much as was feasibly possible for the rest of the campaign, so that I could really commit to this being as close to a full-time job every day, to be honest, because I knew that was how I was going to get the result. And as soon as I started doing that, I saw my uplift in my project, in the value, in the revenue that was coming in, and the contacts, the questions. So just making myself available at the beginning was hard, and once I recognized what I needed to do, then everything began to take off.
Definitely. And we've heard it so many times, but you really do get out what you put in with crowdfunding. It doesn't happen when you're on holiday. You have to be driving it forward, pedaling away. Yeah. And I think it's interesting what you said about sort of this fear of failure as well. And I think particularly in this country as well, I think we do have quite a scathing view of failure, that it's like a really terrible thing, which isn't necessarily universal. It's not necessarily like that all the time. And I think reframing what it means to fail. There's a quote from someone that I can't remember, but some inventor at some point that was like, I haven't failed, I've just found 1,000 ways not to do it. For example. And I think that's really quite important when we're thinking, when you have that startup mentality, is it's actually okay if this is not the thing that makes you a millionaire, and if actually you're not trying to be a millionaire, that's absolutely fine. The biggest names, in business, you can bet they've got a long old list of failures before the thing, that them for. Definitely. So I guess let's look at the other side then. So you mentioned some of the best things about crowdfunding, about finding that audience, and you really can't beat that little moment when you get that email that says, "Fab, you've received a pledge," or something else has pledged.
Yeah.
Who was it? What have they got? What have they pledged on? What were the best things for you? What did you really love about it?
I think, I set an initial target of £3,000. And again, I saw lots of people asking questions about the target, and I didn't have a clue. I mean, I'd looked up how much the TPI was going to cost. And I kind of done a back of a stamp quick budget about what I needed to get this whole operation up and running. But I kept thinking, how am I going to get £3,000 from this? So I kept it all quite low. And then actually, as things evolved, as I know lots of people do, I was able to keep revising and look at my stretch targets. And, actually in the end, it got to 5.5, which far exceeded my expectations. So I think hitting that first target was a really big moment. I remember it was like a Saturday morning, and I was just getting coffee somewhere. It was just when we could start going places again after lockdown. And it popped up on my phone. And like you said, I just saw that it had gone over the target and was like, and it was someone I hadn't even expected. It was someone I didn't even know was the person that put us over the target. And that was what was really exciting, that sense that, the reach has kind of gone even further, that actually the word of mouth is spreading, that the work you're putting in is really paying off. And as soon as I saw that email come through, I knew we were going to make the stretch target as well. And that was really exciting. I think probably the single biggest, most exciting thing was actually I had a really huge donation from one person who was someone who was loosely in my community. She'd been to a few online sessions. I didn't know her personally. I've met her since, but I didn't know her at the time. And she just had really connected with the work in a really, totally digitally, just completely through social media was how she found me. And she called me up. She got my number from my website and rang me halfway through my campaign and said, I think this is amazing. But I don't want to give you £500. I want to give you more than that. And I was so blown away. I got off the phone and burst into tears. I was so blown away. And I think that was really that moment of, knowing that your message has landed, that, people are really understanding what you're doing and why, and they believe in it and they believe in you. And actually we did a deal where she did make a fairly hefty donation. And I keep trying to explain to people, it's not just for someone giving money. There's that mentality of, she just gave me money. Actually, I'm giving her a series of one-to-one sessions over a year in return. And she says to me, I see this as an investment in myself as well as in you. And I think that's just a really nice sentiment. And every time I see her now for her one-to-ones, that there is such a sense of kind of joy and uplift around those sessions, because they really mean something to both of us. And that's been the most amazing journey, to start building those connections at that level, and out of that, to be able to share that with other people through the space that I funded.
What an amazing story.
It's so great.
I love that. And these connections do happen, I find myself, when I get a pledge from someone whose name I don't know, first thing I do is type it into Facebook, see if we've got friends in common. Who are they? How have they found? Who is this person? So I'm going to sort of go a little bit, this direction now. So I guess outside of crowdfunding, is there any sort of hot tips that you have for anyone who's sort of new to starting a business? This is their first business that they've started up. Things like bank accounts, accounting software, marketing, anything that you were like, if I had known this was a really good thing to know. When I was first starting up. Yeah,
absolutely. So this so the two businesses that I have now are my fifth businesses actually. So I've gone on a bit of a journey with different businesses of different shapes and scales and sizes, learning what sticks. And I think definitely bank accounts is a biggie. I wasted so much money early on with accounts that I didn't need. And actually what I find is really amazing now, I'm sure lots of people have heard of Monzo as a personal account, but there's lots of really similar accounts like that for business. So I use one personally called Coconut, and then there's like Tide, Starling, N26. There's quite a few others, which are basically bank accounts within an app. And they're really amazing if you're a sole trader or a startup, because the thing that's great is they basically do your taxes for you as you go along. They allow you to categorize all of your expenses as you go. Every time you do anything or pay for anything by card or anything at all, you can attach a business expense note to it. You can upload your receipt at the same time. And I find that is such a big time saver. When you're building your own business, I think getting into accounts can be the scary thing, and the thing where a lot of people come unstuck, particularly if they're not used to operating in a kind of a really corporate way. So I find those accounts really handy, and they're just kind of foolproof. It means that you can be on top of your tax status and your tax position all the time, which is really good. And when you come to do your self-assessment or your corporation tax return, it is just download the spreadsheet. It's all categorized. You're like, yes, now I'm not paying an accountant £8,000 to do this for me, which is a big win. I also think, if you're going to use accounting software, I've always used Xero, which I find really good. There's loads of other good stuff out there, but at the moment, I actually don't use one at all because the bank account does it for me, which is really good, as I'm now back to being a small startup again. So that really is a much better fit for this business.
Yeah, that's what I do as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so much better. It's so much better. The other thing I would say, because I know there's a few questions about social media, I have a bit of background in this. Social advertising is a real dark art, and I would say that obviously, everyone can go online and throw Facebook ads up, but it really, I would be careful of it unless you actually know how to work the algorithm, because especially if you're starting a business and you're working off your personal Instagram or Facebook account, your algorithm is going to be tuned to your personal friendship group. So they're already the people that, as Bertie was saying, you can already pick up the phone to and already WhatsApp. If you're trying to advertise more widely than your immediate network, you really need to work the algorithm. And that does mean a bit more sort of detailed expertise in digital advertising. So I would say don't be fooled into throwing money onto Facebook boost or that kind of stuff, unless you've got, definitely seek out some third-party advice on that, because it can be it's just a waste of money if you're not sure what you're doing. It will only show it to people you're already talking to anyway, most of the time. Not as a massive generalization, but I think everyone knows now that Facebook advertising is a real revenue driver for them. It's not really actually a revenue driver for the advertiser. So definitely just be mindful to seek out some expert guidance before sinking money into social advertising. It's probably not going to be the return you want, and that's a thing I think a lot of people now, especially there's so many ads on Instagram, coaches, get your 10,000 followers in a week, all that stuff. I'm probably just being really skeptical and cynical, but they just don't work. What works is being honest and authentic and telling your story. And it's not about how many followers you have, it's about how engaged the followers you have are. There's no point in having 100,000 followers if the same 20 are the ones that comment on everything. Much better to have
the term vanity and sanity before. Yes. It's nice to have this vanity number, but if they're not engaging, if they're not buying, if they're not actually, bringing you any revenue, it's just vanity, it's not sanity.
Yeah. And I see I've got a few friends who've really, particularly in one or two friends who've really escalated their Instagram following lately to be influencers. They're really keen on this influencer tag. But, to be a successful influencer and to be actually influencing your sales and your marketplace, you need a much broader engagement. So if you're kind of new to all this, it's really good to just, I'm sure you guys have some great webinars for this anyway, but to get into the insight section on Instagram and Facebook and really learn about audience behavior. And you can do a lot more with that information than just blindly throwing a tenner here and there advertising. So I actually didn't do any social advertising. In fact, I don't use social advertising anymore across any businesses, but I didn't do it at all for Crowdfunder. I did post to my pages and to my social media page, and the thing that was really helpful was running incentives. So the first 3 people to pledge today are going to get something extra, a little freebie. The person that I know you did this, Sammy, as well, the person that takes us over the target gets a big extra. Incentivizing directly rather than just slinging it out there. And this kind of tunes into the old school marketing philosophies of above and below the line. A billboard in an airport is going to get thousands of people, maybe not anymore, but it's going to get hundreds of thousands of people. But the percentage of those people that will buy is really small. Whereas when you're talking directly to people are already engaged or that you've already targeted for engagement, you're going to do a lot better with your hit rate. So I know lots of people will have, different views on this. I have spent a lot of time and money over the years and professionally in my previous career looking at this. And I definitely would say to be mindful of those courses that promise you're going to double and triple your Instagram following in a day, because they almost certainly are working their own algorithm, not yours.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that's awesome advice. And I've just seen the time and oh my God, we have run over, but we've been having time. So I hope that people have been finding it useful. So we're going to do a little bit of a Q&A. We're going to bring Bertie back if he's still here, if he's not wandered off looking for a sandwich for lunch. Here he is. Fab.
I am still here and I love that. Thank you, Janie. That was really nice to have like some proper business expertise in there as well.
For sure. So let's go. I'm just going to go to the audience for some questions and just field them in. If you've got any more questions that you've thought of while Janie's been speaking, I know we've covered a lot, feel free to plot them in and we'll see how many we can get through. So let's crack straight on. I've got a question here for Bertie, first of all, from Ben. Why should I do rewards crowdfunding instead of equity-based crowdfunding?
So, thanks for the question, Ben. I think they're very different animals, really. I think the benefit of rewards campaigns for businesses is that you're obviously maintaining complete control of the business, and you're therefore not having to sell shares or sell a percentage of your business. And rewards is essentially a way in which to test your audience and find out what kind of products they're interested in. So I think when people think about rewards-based crowdfunding and they wonder whether I'm giving too much away, it's more like Janie said, you're just using a focused amount of time that is much more focused than usual to drive purchasing activity. So there's no reason why rewards should therefore be completely majorly discounted. That is a tactic you can use, but you should just have your basic product on there as well and just encourage that, because more money in crowdfunding means more people interested and kind of snowballs to that effect.
I mean, one of the key things as well is you can't do an equity crowdfund for a new business. Your business has to have a value in order for you to crowdfund it. So startups, if you are a startup, and I know we're focused on startups today, rewards is how you get it going. And if you actually look back at, a lot of successful equity raises, a lot of them you'll find have done a rewards before, just to dip a toe and stretch their crowdfunding muscles. So I'm going to go now to a question for Janie. So did you promote your business internationally, or did that happen naturally? Did you have an international audience for your business, Janie?
Not really. It was pretty organic. So how it started, especially with the online sessions I was doing in spring, was that, for example, I've got a couple of girls here in Newquay who come to all my sessions, and they sent the link to their mums, and one of their mums lived in France, and she shared it to her friends, and it was very organic in that sense. But once you've got a little foothold in those communities, it's surprising how, if you're using your insights and your audience insights to identify that, you can do something about it. So I very quickly kind of could see that my audience in France, for whatever reason, was spiking. I think all initially because of this regular local girl who had connected her mum, and I happened to speak French, so I made sure that I started doing a couple of sessions with a bit of French, and maybe doing the odd post, working in some sort of more localized market, that I started to think about my timing so that I was offering sessions even for that small time difference that were more suitable for that audience. And that's it's something I probably wouldn't have done without this campaign accelerating that conversation. So it's been really, one of the huge learnings has been about how to grow the business, with the community I've got now rather than the community I started with. But yeah, certainly I think it's a combination of the crowdfunder and then being forced online, as we all were in the springtime, and then the two of them kind of coalescing really nicely, which was really amazing.
Yeah, and I actually had quite a similar experience with my most recent business campaign. I had quite a few pledges from Canada. Now, I used to live in Canada, but that I don't think was the main reason why. I've got some friends that live in Canada, and one of my friends who lives here, who is Canadian, her mum, again, mums are always there. Go on, mums.
Great.
Go on, mums. And for me, it wasn't something I sought out. I wasn't aiming for a Canadian market. That was just like, way too much. Wasn't even on my radar. But when it happens, make the most of it. So, I've got a question, I think probably more for Bertie. We've sort of touched on this, maybe I think you might have a take on it as well, Janie, is if the average reward value is £50, so the average pledge is around about £50, what kind of range do you recommend for rewards? And do you think you can discount your rewards too much? So I think this is all about pricing rewards.
Yeah, so I think the important thing for rewards is there's no use in having them for the sake of it. Kind of like what Janie was talking about, a Facebook spend. Rewards are completely built and developed around the individual or the intended customer. So rather than locking yourself in a room, or not that you do that, but thinking at possible rewards, it's best to kind of think about it with other people, because you don't want to be launching a campaign cold with something that no one actually wants. So it's best to workshop that a bit first and get some opinions. And then with discounts, one of the great benefits is that you can continually add and remove rewards as you go. So to drive lots of activity at a particular moment in your crowdfunding campaign, you could offer it at a reduced cost price. But I'd say that it's not, crowdfunding isn't a kind of like a bargain necessarily completely driven by discounts. It's absolutely plays a part in your strategy. But the main thing is about looking at the categories of rewards, so products and services, experiences and events, sponsorship and membership, and general thank yous, and then making sure that you've got something that's going to appeal to either the sentiment or the reward for someone's campaign. Like if you want to get international buy-in, then you need something that's going to appeal to them. If they can't come to your festival, then maybe they could stream it online or get the video or the album afterwards of some of the artists. But that's my advice. What do you think, Janie?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And I would say think about value rather than discounting. So, for example, my kind of headline product is this a subscription box, which I send out monthly, and you can buy it standalone. But obviously, I want people to buy a subscription. I want to lock them in for 3, 6 or 12 months so that obviously I can leverage them as a customer during that time, build a relationship, and it's income from each month, so I can therefore increase my volumes and improve my margins. So I did put the single boxes on, but I put them on a limited amount, and that's a really useful tool where you can actually have a maximum number of each reward. So I only put 10 of those boxes on, and they were the first things that went. So again, validation wise, that was great for me to know that my primary product was the thing everyone wanted the most. But when they went, instead of adding on more, I added on more of the subscription. So actually the single box is gone, but now you can buy a 3-month subscription for £20 off. So that worked really well to guide people in. And I know when I've pledged as a guest on Crowdfunder as well, when I can see that all of the reward is gone, you're like, oh, that was the best one. And even if it wasn't, the psychology is that whatever the first thing to sell out is the thing that is really kind of the lead product. So then you look for the closest thing to that. And I think there's lots of consumer research that shows that, which is really useful. So yeah, I found that actually rather than just heavily discounting, I got people in on a subscription, which was much more valuable and actually ongoing. Because it meant that out of Crowdfunder, I had a whole bunch of new subscribers who, for most of the ones who did a 3-month, their 3-month is now just finished, but now the majority of them have now re-signed up again, which is exactly what I wanted. So yeah, value over money off. It's nice to have a little bit of money off, but I definitely wouldn't heavily discount, because effectively what you're doing is advanced selling what you're already retailing. So, you know, if it basically means that you've just run like a massive mid-season sale that then you've got to honor. So you kind of want to make sure you're not over discounting. And I would say definitely, you know, single figure percents up to 15 at most for me would be my thoughts on that. Otherwise you finish your campaign, you're like, awesome, but then you're sending everything out at discounts and that doesn't feel great. So
yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's get this finished up. We've only run over by 40 minutes, so let's finish up. I'm going to say thank you so much to Janie for joining us. been some incredible advice. So I know we put a link to the project in there. I can see it just in the chat box. If you do have a look from there, you'll be able to find Janie's social media for her business. So if you want to find out a bit more about it, check out her social media, jump on there, follow her, engage. I don't know, buy a subscription box, sign up, go to the sound bath. I went to one on Saturday, it was life-changing. So thanks so much. And we'll just finish up. I'll just be talking to Bertie a little bit more.
Thank you so much, Janie. That was awesome.
Take care. Good luck, guys.
See ya.
Bye. So then, Bertie, right. The Learn platform. This is why people have been hanging on instead of rushing off to eat their hula hoops and sandwiches, which is what I've got for lunch. Tell us about the Learn platform. What's it all about? How do we access it?
So I think one of the normal approaches we take to teaching crowdfunding is workshops, where we travel around the UK. And like many businesses, many of you, we've had to adapt. And adapting meant creating a whole workshop process and distilling it into a Learn platform, we call it, Crowdfunder Learn. So it forms the second half of what is the Crowdfunder Live section, which is what you've had today. And you'll now be very familiar with the concepts we've talked about, and therefore you'll be primed to engage with the Learn platform. And we'll have you quick kind of show and tell of this now. But essentially it covers the introduction to crowdfunding, and it means that you, before you start, have a very, very good idea about what to expect from the crowdfunding process and what you need to do. And it's completely free to start, and it's going to be full of hints and tips to make sure you are in the best shape possible before you start. And really, it's the best thing you can do, because if you're worried, if you're nervous, then this is a tick box strategy. And if you complete the course, then you're ready to crowdfund. And it isn't long. It's essentially working off our 3 principal guides, which are around the planning of your campaign, creating the page, and running the campaign itself. So really I can't recommend it enough.
Definitely. And I know we've got the link in there, so there's all sorts of downloadable bits and bobs which you won't find anywhere else on the Crowdfunder site. So do go on there. Once you finish the introductory course, there's actually a link that you can go through and do a planning course. Then creating will be launching soon, so that you can actually go through with a much finer detail on each of those elements as well, to really get your campaign super slick. Awesome. And looking great right from the start. So I can see that your dog Bobby there has had quite enough of us chatting today. So I think we'll leave it there. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. We'll be sending around a link so you can rewatch later, and good luck with your startups.